What happens when the financial system you depend on is no longer trusted? With US banks exposed to massive silver short positions and Western exchanges on the verge of losing credibility, the pressure is building. And Brics is ready to take advantage of this by launching their own international precious metals exchange. The metals markets are already heating up. The price of palladium, for example, rose over 8% just yesterday. And that's a metal that the Brics nations dominate control of, by the way. But could this be the beginning of a global shift in financial power? And could silver be the next metal to surge in price? Well, let's get to it. Buy your gold and silver at SD Bullion. Right now, new customers can get gold or silver at spot by visiting sdbullion.com/new. Hey everybody, Smart Silver Stacker here. Hope you're doing well. So we need to talk about silver and gold and platinum and palladium as well, all the precious metals, because we just got a bombshell announcement from the Brics as they wrapped up their annual summit in Kazan, Russia, regarding the creation of a new international precious metals exchange. Now, let's recap just briefly and talk about how we got to where we are today. So back at the end of September, Russia made an important announcement that they would be buying silver in their state investment fund for the first time. Now, this does mark a significant shift in the way silver is viewed. You've got a nation now buying it as a monetary reserve asset. That's a role that silver hasn't filled in quite some time. But if moving forward, silver is remonetized and nations begin buying it up, well, you're going to see a big appreciation in the silver price. And in fact, that's exactly what we've gotten since Russia made that announcement. At the time I'm recording this video, the spot price of silver is just under $34, and that's a lot higher than it was when Russia made that announcement. Now, I speculated recently that this may actually be a move by Vladimir Putin and Russia and the Brics organization to weaponize silver. Now, how does that work? Well, we talked about a recent report from the Jerusalem Post regarding U.S. banks and their concentrated short position in the silver market. 5 U.S. banks, now following silver's rise in price over the past couple weeks, are sitting on losses on this short position of over $1 billion. Now, that alone puts some pressure on the Western financial system, and it may be that silver and precious metals in general are the Achilles heel of the debt-based fiat system under which basically the entire globe currently operates. And by bidding up the price of silver, I suspect that what Brics may be hoping to do is to put the Western system into a bit of a pickle in which they have to make a decision between bailing out the banks and retaining their credibility. See, the idea of a silver squeeze is not really a unique thing. Short squeezes do occur in commodity markets from time to time. For example, back in 2022, there was a short squeeze in the nickel market. You saw the price more than double in a very short period of time, and there was a short squeeze. And basically, a short squeeze just means that those with short positions are forced to go into the market and buy up the underlying asset to close their short position. And if there's a limited supply of something, like in silver, for example, you can see the price skyrocket on such an event. Now, in that case with nickel, what the exchanges did was they froze the market and they protected the short. They kind of bailed out their elite, billionaire buddy. But every time you do that, that undermines confidence in the exchange and in the market. And I think we already know that the COMEX, the LBMA, the LME, these Western metals exchanges, their reputation is not so great, especially here in the stacking community, of course, because of the manipulation of the precious metals, but also reports of empty warehouses full of stones, the freezing of the nickel market, the fact that there's about 400 ounces of paper silver traded for every single underlying physical ounce. I mean, all of these things should make it clear that the game at these Western metals exchanges is essentially just musical chairs, and that at some point, if the market starts to experience some turbulence, if the cracks start to show, there could be a race to the exit. And that may be exactly what the Brics nations are hoping for here. They hope for a position in which either these banks are forced to take huge losses or the metals markets are forced to intervene in some way and show their hand and undermine confidence in themselves. And that is perhaps why they are now planning to launch a international precious metals exchange, one that they say will have a fair pricing. Now, what does that mean? I mean, it could mean real price discovery for gold and silver. And if that's the case, well, that probably means that you want to get your hands on some physical bullion, not, contracts, claims on fake paper silver, digital silver, but the real tangible kind of actual bullion you can hold in your hand. You want to get that before any kind of real price discovery occurs in these markets, because once that happens, well, it's going to cost you a lot more to get your hands on this stuff. Now, another reason that the BRICS nations want this international precious metals exchange is to help avoid sanctions, something that is actually ongoing and in the works. Just yesterday, for example, there was news that the U.S. was floating the idea of sanctions on Russian palladium production to G7 member states. And on that news, just the news that it was floated, not an announcement of sanctions, you saw the price of palladium rise over 8% in just one session. And today it's up again over 4%. So you can see how this weaponization of metals and this trade war can really have a big impact on the spot prices of metal, and also kind of how these sanctions could backfire. Sanctions on metals can drive the price up, which actually benefits the producers of the metal. And in this case, the BRICS nations control a significant amount of palladium for sure, but also gold, silver, and platinum. In the case of palladium, for example, Russia produces something like half of the world's supply, and then BRICS member South Africa makes up most of the rest. Canada makes a little bit, but really not enough to satisfy the needs of Western industry. Palladium and the other platinum group metals are critical in the production of internal combustion vehicles, the catalytic converters, and also serve as catalysts in a host of other industrial processes. Now, you don't necessarily need a lot of those metals, but the supply is so small that any reduction in access could lead to spiking prices. And we saw a little bit of that yesterday. But when it comes to the other metals, the BRICS nations also have a dominant position in terms of gold. China is the number one producer. Russia is the number two producer. When it comes to silver, Mexico makes the most silver of any country in the world, but China is in the number two position. Russia in number 8. So the BRICS nations, in addition to controlling more than 40% of the world's population and a larger share of global GDP than the G7 nations, they also control a disproportionate amount of precious metals production. And that could end up being a very big deal in this age when it appears that the metals now are being weaponized as part of this fifth generational warfare. Imagine the situation that banks and Western exchanges are in. They either need to allow the banks to crumble under the weight of these silver positions, or they may need to intervene in their markets, undermining their confidence. That's perfect for the BRICS, who will then be able to pose their exchange as the trustworthy alternative and ultimately gain much more control over these markets. And there was another event that I wanted to mention that occurred at the BRICS conference, which just wrapped up yesterday, and that was the unveiling of this BRICS currency unit mock-up. They actually had like a physical bill and what it might look like if they launch a BRICS currency. Now, Vladimir Putin has told us that it is premature to launch such a thing and that there's a lot of logistics that need to be worked out before BRICS can launch its own currency. But I think the fact that they did display this mock-up shows that it's an idea that they take seriously, and it will likely be backed up by either gold or potentially a basket of precious metals or commodities. In fact, that could be why Russia is now purchasing silver. It might be with the aims of backing up some future commodity-based currency and remonetizing silver. So a very interesting development. But one thing that happens whenever I mention the BRICS currency in a video is I get a lot of comments from people about how it will be untrustworthy because it's just fiat with a promise to redeem, kind of like a silver certificate back in the day. And I agree with that completely. The BRICS currency, I don't even necessarily know this is something that individual citizens of the BRICS nations or elsewhere would be able to hold. The idea is that it's just designed for international trade settlement and getting away from the dollar as a means of doing that. And so even if you don't ever want to have any BRICS currency units or stack them, and I probably wouldn't unless they're actually physically made of metal, they're not just redeemable, because you can't really trust a state actor's promise to redeem a currency, it's still going to be very important for the precious metals and the way international trade is conducted when we do eventually get that announcement. And that is coming. Probably years down the road, but I think the BRICS organization is taking the long view on this. Of course, if you want to get a currency that actually contains precious metals, well, you could always get some old US silver dollars that contain 90% silver. Those have certainly held their value a lot better than the silver certificates that circulated alongside them. Or you can check out goldbacks. That is actually a physical gold currency in notes, beautiful notes with serial numbers and security features, all the nice things that we like to have in a circulating currency in this modern era. But they actually contain, each note, 1/1000th of a troy ounce of gold. And when I first mentioned these on the channel, I think the goldbacks were trading for under $3 a note, and today they're over $5, given gold's significant rise since that time. So if you're interested in an actual circulating gold currency in the United States, these circulate in 5 states, then check out goldback.com, and also upma.org offers some goldback related services that I utilize, including free storage and a program, the Goldback Lease Program, by which you can actually earn interest paid in gold on your gold back notes. So check them out. There's a link down in the description to upma.org. But let me know what you think in the comments down below. Is the Brics International Precious Metals Exchange going to make waves in the metals market? Are we going to continue to see precious metals like silver, gold, and palladium spiking in value as the metals get weaponized? I would love to know what you think about this. Leave me a comment down below. Stay safe and happy stacking, everybody. I'll catch you next time. Smart Silver Stacker out.